following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there, good evening, welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. As always, I'm Steve O'Matt, and it's a warm welcome to every single one of you for joining us, where you're watching live or where you're going to be catching up retrospectively. Either way, thanks for joining us. And you can see it's a 4-ball, it's a full screen, exciting times. I've got the usual two reprobates beside me, my right-hand man, Paddy Boy, and the other bald brother, Joe Donnelly, but there's a special guest there. We have a fantasy football aficionado and, of course, contributor and host of Seltzer here. We've got the well-known Quinny. You don't need me to tell you who Quinny is, so a warm welcome to yourself. Quinny, thanks for coming on, mate. How you doing?
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Long-time listener, first-time, long-time listener, first-time caller. I think that's the way you say it, isn't it? Sorry. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it, mate.
Our pleasure, as we say. So we've got bright and breezy for everybody that's watching. International break, isn't it? It's a wee bit boring. A couple of things to talk about. There's some injury updates. We'll go on to that. Obviously, there's some fan stuff to go back onto as well. And we'll just think, we'll do a wee report card. Because I think that international break came at a right good time for people. We get to reset, let's evaluate, because it's been a fantastic season. We're going to go through it. What was the key results? What do we think? Best performances, top players, and we will grade each and every single aspect. So get your thoughts in the comments. If you want to talk about anything, fire it up and let's get doing. Before we do, the wee quick bit of housekeeping, as we say, welcome back to the channel. Just make sure, if you haven't already, hit the like, hit the subscribe, join the community. If you want to help out with it, you can donate. Member section helps put all this together. And of course, you know the social medias by now. X at CW Pod 1888. We're on Spotify. Paddy does the TikTok. He's a big Wayne. And of course, you can get us in Spotify on the move. So plenty of ways to communicate with us. So guys, let's just jump straight into the deep end here. Obviously, we've come off the back of this international break. We had a couple of international sales, as we always do. It comes with the territory, doesn't it, of being the biggest and best team in Scotland. But the big one, and I'll come straight down to yourself, Quinny, is Kasper Schmeichel. It's bad news. We saw him. He was audibly in pain. You could actually hear it. And it turns out it's a bad shoulder injury. He's supposed to be getting an MRI tonight. But the chat is that it's going to be well into September if we're likely to see him. Despite the league being done, it's a huge blow, mate, isn't it?
It's massive. So I think the last thing we're obviously, still on the knife edge with is the treble, and there's still some cup games to go, which isn't, a foregone conclusion. And, this is, I think, it's a big injury. We obviously wish Kasper a speedy recovery and hope he comes back, because it does sound like a bad one. And, we've had a wee bit of form for, the report of Dyson Maida's the one that really sticks out in my mind of I think he got injured. I don't know if it was last January or the one before, but it was kind of newish year time. And it was some sort of hamstring injury. And apparently it's he's going to be out for 3 or 4 months. And he was back in 2 days or something like that. And he came back off the bench.
That's Dyson, though.
It really felt, yeah, exactly. But it felt like that game really turned everyone on Dyson in a good way. If you know what I mean, everyone was like, wow, this guy's superhuman and whatever. So we've got a wee bit of form for guys jumping ahead of schedule or whatever. Kasper seems to be a really solid professional. So as much as September's the thing that now, I'm still crossing my fingers it's maybe not quite that bad. But I think where everyone gets nervous is that it's all the eggs in the Sinisalo basket now. And Celtic's transfer business is still really the hot topic, isn't it?
Are we maybe going to get the Baniac out of cold storage? I mean, he's been at Celtic for as long as I can remember. Is that we joke often? He must be a great laugh to have around. There's some DJ in the changing room. But in terms of that, Quinny, without sounding negative about it, he is getting on in his years. He's been fantastic. He's been a phenomenal signing. He's one of the standouts. We'll mention that when we talk about him. But is it the eggs in the Sinisalo basket? Should he have been bled in when we think of cup games? Or I know it's not the done thing, but some of those games where we're right out of sight to bring him on, give him some minutes, because it is a big ask. And there's still some games that have got to be taken care of. Certainly with the cup, we want to try and get to the treble. But whether the league's over or not, the game against Rangers is one that you want your best players on it, and it's a massive. Have you any concerns about this? And more to the point, do you think this could actually be the end of Kasper Schmeichel? Because bear in mind, we're going to keep him on, but depending on how that injury goes, it could be kicking into the tail end of this year.
It's a bit of a thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially,
It's a difficult thought that none of us want to have, I think.
Yeah. I think the problem with it as well is like the goalkeeper market is one Celtic have really avoided going into since Barkas, because we went, we kind of went after a profile, a younger guy, got some caps at an okay squad, and obviously ended up like just throwing money down the drain with him. And then off the back of that, free transfer, big wages, Joe Hart, free transfer, big wages, Kasper Schmeichel. And over the last like 2 summers, like because of the stuff I mess around with fantasy football and 1 or 2 other bits and bobs, there's been a lot of like goalkeepers that, if we were going to buy a keeper, like there was plenty going around, and now they've moved. There are other places they've got jobs. So it's one that I don't I would be scared. If we needed a goalkeeper in this summer, I would be quite nervous. Yeah.
You're touching on that there, Quinny, like you said. I thought the guy was it Livakovic, the boy that's at Fenerbahce now?
Yes.
He was on their bench, the Croatian keeper. I thought he was the one that we were going to get. Obviously, there was high links there. And I thought, that's a statement for Celtic. That's the biggie. That's the one that we need to go for. And then, like you said, nothing materialised from it. And then, for me, the Kasper thing, we were obviously linked with the boy from Newcastle, Dubravka, and we're linked with pretty much anybody that was becoming a free transfer, anybody that was above 36. And do you know what I mean? It was just one of the things with Celtic, and it's a position that we've always had somebody solid in there. So it's something that I think we really need to solidify, because that's your bread and butter at the end of the day, is keeping clean sheets.
I mean, absolutely, Paddy. I mean, yourself, Joe, like in terms of this goalkeeping situation, like let's not hit the disaster button right now, but as I say, there's important games still to be getting over the line, and of course you always want to have your best there. Do you think Sinisalo, he's obviously what we're all expecting that he's going to be the go-to, because he was the guy that was signed when he was supposed to be the heir apparent to Kasper Schmeichel, getting bled in, maybe learning the ropes, but we haven't really seen anything off him.
No.
Does he come from good stock potentially? But do you feel that we've maybe dropped the ball a wee bit with this goalkeeping situation, where we have put all our eggs really into the Kasper Schmeichel basket, and then we're like, right, okay.
It's a difficult one. Like, at the end of the day, if Sinisalo has been training alongside Kasper Schmeichel as well, then he's going to have been picking up bits and bobs as he's been going. He's going to be training well with him, and hopefully keeping up, if not bettering, Kasper's fitness level and everything as well. So if he's got the basics there and he can gel into the team the way we certainly hope, and it might take him a game or two, I'm sorry to say it, but it really might. Which, can we afford? Yes and no. We can afford that in the league, but we can't really afford it in the cup. So it's
Sorry,
it's a sticky situation.
Hazard's got to come in and be a hero, didn't he? He got to come in and play the hero at one point. So let's look at it. Listen, the young guy's been bought in.
And listen,
he's not been brought in for nothing.
Nawrocki, he surprised us. We thought he was just gone and done and out. And no, I know, Paddy, you had a different view of him at the game. But we certainly thought that his performance, for someone who's not even mentioned as a sub or anything for the past 6 months or so,
and then he came
out and absolutely rocked it, I think. Absolutely. So,
well, this is the one here, Quinny, just to finish off with the situation with Kasper. And this is true. This is going to go into this qualifiers. Now, as we know, we're kind of, as champions elect, we'll have the sort of safer route, if you want to call it that. Less games, of course. It should be being the optimum word there, or term, straightforward. But it's huge. Now, do you think Brendan will want to dip into the goalkeeping market? Now, as you touched on, we've kind of been a wee bit stung with that. We landed on our feet with the Hart and then Kasper Schmeichel. But do you think there'll be enough period between now and the end of the season for maybe Sinisalo to really, if it's going to be him, to step up and convince? And if he was lukewarm, would you be happy with what we've got between him and Bain there? Is the notion of maybe going and adding a fourth goalkeeper like really possible? Do Celtic do these things?
Well, that's a great point. I hadn't really had time to think about it in the Champions League qualifier sense, but one thing I'll come back to what Joe was talking about there. Like one of the things Sinisalo said when we signed him was that like Kasper Schmeichel was like his idol or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I've termed it on Celtic here before as being like Padawan and Jedi. So it's time for like
I love it.
maybe
I love it.
he gets a wee shot of the lightsaber this week, and we'll see how well he does with it, And with the Connor Hazard thing, I thought that was a really funny parallel that came into my mind because after that cup final heroics, Connor Hazard went on loan to Finland and got like Player of the Year or something, didn't he?
Yeah,
And also Sinisalo's like finished.
Yep,
so there's
that's
a wee funny wee thing there hidden maybe. So you never know. I actually said like I did a video on Celtic here last week, and I'll be doing a few of them where it's like looking at transfers that we could do and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And the first one I did last week was looking at players in the league, and like one of the topics I kind of wanted to kind of put out there a little bit is like if you're Celtic or any club that's like us in the situation we're in, this is before the injury happened. Like you've got Schmeichel, he's clearly like he's had his 1 year extension. You can't really think about him beyond that period of time because of his age and all the rest of it. So if Sinisalo is to be the replacement for him next season, you couldn't do what he did this year. The guy has to play, So like if you believe in him, you've had that year of like being the Padawan, being the apprentice or whatever. Next year you kick him out to Hibs, Hearts, someone in Belgium or Portugal, doesn't matter, but just play him 38 games a season or something. And then you've got like maybe, ready-made out the oven kind of goalkeeper situation. But to then do that, you need someone on the bench, which isn't Bain. So that would then put us into the market again, potentially for. And in the video last week, we were looking at domestic talent, and I named Balcombe at Motherwell, formerly St Mirren. Guy's a machine. Fraser Foster-esque, I would say. Like he's a good guy. I like him. And the boy Jordan Amisa, who's at Ross County, he's kind of came out of nowhere, and he's actually got like a good background, a good kind of pedigree, which Celtic just love. Guys that have been at good youth academies and stuff. And
that's the thing with that. You're talking about domestic. I'm all for, as we say, is looking and dipping into Celtic. We're always on the foundations of having some international talent and the best of the rest, some homegrown or at least in our league players added in around the squad. I think that's great there. But we all remember Siegrist. Siegrist was supposed to be the next big answer there, and it never really worked there. So, Paddy, I mean, there's a lot of work to be done here. Do you like any of the names that Quinny's sort of floating there, any of them doing anything for you? Or do you think this is one that we've got?
The last thing I just
out?
want to say on that, sorry, is like that's all on the reality of Celtic having a plan.
Of course, we know that. We know that they're not great with plans.
They're maybe now forced into this situation a little bit, but when I'm kind of projecting that, it's like, well, if we are being serious about Sinisalo to Schmeichel, that's the way you would go about it, potentially. So I just wanted to finish that. Sorry.
When you look at it, the game against Ross County, the keeper had a blinder against us. If you remember it, it was ripping corners out the air. He pulled off about 5 or 6 absolute nailers of saves. Ones that were shooting in. Dies Maeda was clean through him twice, and he ripped the ball out the bottom corner. So he's one that I would be happy to kind of look at. But listen, going into it, you can't really speculate going forward that we're going to bring anybody in. We don't even know the extent of Kasper's injury yet, and like Quinny says, Celtic players have got a habit of returning from injury a lot quicker than what they normally do.
Well, we keep our fingers crossed there, because in terms of, we've got a big game at the weekend. Obviously, we want to lift ourselves after the game against Rangers. It is what it is now. Put it to the back of your memory, cast it away. But game against Hearts, up and down, but they'll always give you a right good going to, and you want to bounce back. You want to get there. Of course, we know that we had Austin Trusty, there was personal things, obviously returned from America. They said there was a bit of a calf injury. That's the same with Cal McGregor. You'd like to hope that we're going to get 2 of them dropping in, because as we know, in terms of other injury problems that we've gotten around, Scales with the surgery to the face, that's going to be a good while anyway. I don't think there's any requirement to really rush him back. But also the much forgotten Bernardo is supposedly going to be in line to be getting at least bled back into the team. The weekend might come a wee bit too early for him, but hopefully we can get back Trusty and we can get back Cal McGregor, because the last thing we want to do is, fair play, as you say, Joe Nawrocki, I thought, gave a good account of himself. But again, do you want to have Nawrocki drop back in plus a new goalkeeper? That's a real relationship. You want your back line to be solid. You don't want any risk there, mate.
it's a lot of reliance on your back line that have not, or possibly have not, gelled together and played those minutes together under the real pressure. So, and training ground is training ground. You're expecting who's hitting it, and who's hitting it. A bit different when you're in the moment.
No, and that's the thing, Paddy, is you need that settledness. So hopefully we can get Trusty back. Him, Carter Vickers, standard, get Sloop in there, get AJ back in, as we well know, because I don't want to have at the back, your back line, spine of your team and all that. You don't want to have that risk. And the fact of the matter is, Hearts are more than capable of giving us issues. So the last thing we want is a goalkeeper trying to find his feet and being unsure about the guys in front of him. But it is what it is, isn't it?
Listen, that's it. You've got to have faith in the boys in front of you. I just hope Alistair Johnson's all right as well. He took a nice wee knock in the game against America the other night. He did
and he was playing peacekeeper as well.
He was, yeah. So obviously he's got back up and played on and whatever else. So fingers crossed he's all right. These internationals, I don't feel, have been very kind to us. I think it's we spoke about it coming at the right time. Could have come at the wrong time if we're going to end up losing a few players out it. But yeah, like you say, Steve, you want your best four in front of you. And the best four for me straight away is obviously Jeffrey Sloop, Carter Vickers, Trusty, and Alistair Johnson.
Yeah, so the team will soon find out. We'll get to hear. We always get to hear from the manager. It's great to hear the wee sort of press conference and get us a steer for where we're going. But we'll get a weekend game. Hopefully, as I say, we'll get a reaction there. But with the weekend comes some other news. Let's get it straight out the way. Thoughts on this one? Of course, this is the Fans Against Criminalisation that's been out. It's going to be a fan protest. It's going to be held outside the London Road Police Office. This is all off the back of course, we know the Derby match, and a lot of people believing that fans were being victimised, they were being targeted, and that it was unlawful. Now, we don't want to flog a dead horse here. If you are interested in this, we done a very lengthy, and it was quite a good, fair debate. I enjoyed that. A lot of good feedback, so thank you to everybody there. It was a good uplift in subscribers as well. We tried to tackle it, as we say, from a grown-up perspective. We tried to look at it and look at the, not necessarily pros and cons, but the reasoning for it, because as we said, it'd be easy for us to sit here and all agree and say that it's completely one-sided. However, as we know, there's no smoke without fire. Every action has a reaction, and so on and so forth. We went through it. We explained the legislation. We gave all the information, and you will make your own assumptions on it, or your final opinion on it. Start off yourself, Paddy. Fan protest outside the police station. This is this is not apparently. This is factually not going to be exclusively to ultras, right? Let's get that clear. This isn't just a Green Brigade thing. Let's get down there. This is for everybody, every Celtic fan. If you feel there's an injustice or whatever, that's a kind of open invite here.
Yeah.
Paddy, talk to me. What's your thoughts on this kind of action?
Personally, I'll give you my thoughts and then I'll tell you obviously what I've been reading. But my thoughts on it, I just think, like you say, Steve, every action has a reaction. Now, turning up at the doors of the police station at 1:15, probably letting off flares, singing songs, and no doubt saying...
Is it? Sorry, jump in. Is that presumptuous, though?
Because this is presumptuous, of course it is. Are they going to go there?
Yeah.
Are they going to go there and do a silent protest? No, they're not. They're not going to go there and just stand and go, yeah, we were hard done by. They're going to go there and make a noise. Let's be honest. They're going to go there and be noticed. And the police know that. So there will be a large police presence once again. And I just think it's fighting fire with fire. It's not going to work. We spoke about how you get around this, how you do. You get the board to sit down with the police. You get the board to sit down with the ultras, and you come to a resolution with this. You don't just go and stand outside a police station and do that. It's not my way of doing things. You know what I mean? I just don't understand it.
Are they really trying? They'll be trying to make a public, kind of very much in the public eye statement of it. That's the whole idea behind this. Is what I think personally.
Yeah. I mean, where are you at with this, Quinny? As I say, we're all about varying opinions here. We don't all sit here and agree. You'll clearly see that for having watched, and particularly when you jumped in on the last time we were covering this here. What is your thoughts on here? What is this? Is this a just cause, or is this something that's going to ultimately make this existing tension potentially worse?
It's all about the reaction, I think, isn't it? You know, or like it does depend on the demonstration, perhaps as well, and actually what happens. I think that's definitely something that needs to be considered. But like, I think we all seen the footage and we all seen what like, it is bang out. You know, there's just no getting away from it, and it's not like an everyday occurrence. It's not like it's, you know, just random people on the street. It's like it's around the football team. It's around the supporters of the team, and you know, ultimately, when I come down on this, I mentioned this before on different places. I won't go into it all and bore everyone with it twice if anyone's heard it again. But like, you know, I've been like falsely arrested coming back from a Celtic game and taken to court and all that crap and everything else that goes with it. And it's not fun. You know, it really isn't.
Yeah.
And I genuinely was like, and everyone involved was like blatantly innocent. It was like it was a stitch up and a half, you know, and it can happen to anyone, is the thing people say, and that happened to me when I was like 17 or whatever. And like, yeah, so it's one of those ones where you don't want it to happen. I dare say you can't let it happen.
Yeah.
But it's I think that's the equal positive reaction thing is definitely something that needs to be remembered by all involved, I think, because as long as it achieves the objective of like shining a light on it so they can't do it because they just know they won't be able to hide, it will be everywhere and all the rest of it, or they come to their good senses and change their ways, or whatever the thing is that needs to happen, then great. But that's not going to happen if you're really rubbing people's nose in it, or you're really giving them the vickies or something. There's a fine line to be caught there where you maybe get a wee bit of justice, but you still also keep within the main spirit of the activity.
I get what you're saying. I think if you're going to if you want to take a moral high ground, if you want to call it that, you got to, you know, wave banners or plaques or whatever it is you're going to be doing, but don't do the stuff that's getting questioned, the setting off flares, maybe the colourful singing or whatever. If you're going to make a statement, it's very important that you do it cleanly. Is that fair? Because I know you've got some strong views on this one, Joe.
What I was going to say there, Connie, I nearly interrupted you. I'm sorry for doing so, but what I was going to say there was, so do you think, in your opinion, is it best then for Green Brigade or other supporters or whoever else to come out and just stand there silent and just, as Steve said, hold placards, hold banners, whatever else it may be? Or do you think to bring the noise is the best thing in that situation? For me, I fall on the side of silently standing, because you don't want to create more of an issue than what's already there. And I'll put that out there straight away, you know.
I think the number one thing with this kind of stuff is really, like, if you want to look at it in like a boiled down sense, like really the number one objective is, to be crass about it, virality. Like, they are going to want to do something and it's on the internet. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone sees it. Everyone rallies behind the cause, and it brings about some sort of change. And, you know, like Celtic supporters, it kind of get virality quite a lot for a variety of different things, positive and negative. And like, I just think like that's just the only thing. I've not really thought too much about like what you've brought up. So, you know, I'm really enjoying thinking about it now, but it's not something I've had much time to think about before. But like, I do think that it is that, you know, it's a fine line to be, because you do that. There is always in a protest like this a sense of justice being needed, where you're kind of like, the protest is like, you got one on us, and there's a wee bit of like, you can't do that to us, which, you know, so there's a wee bit of that.
I think you're in a slightly different boat than I think us three as well. I, for instance, I've not been. I've been falsely arrested for other things. I'll hold my hands up to that and say that. But I've never had something like that at a Celtic game, Celtic match, a night out, or anything along those kind of lines. So I think that's where we all kind of differ there. From your perspective, it's good to get that opinion as well, because we've not had that situation. We've not had that experience, if you will, as well, especially going as far as court and things like that. I'm sorry you had to go through that, especially. But you know, it's very different to what we've experienced. So I wasn't on the podcast of when this situation arrived. Unfortunately, I was very, very ill, but I was in the comments section. I'm going, listen, I've never had a problem and everything like that. maybe that was a bit too much of a leap for me to say now, because you don't know, as I suppose, what happens or what will happen in the future. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll give you a kind of, in case you haven't heard it, or I just didn't want to be that guy that repeats stories or whatever, but
Oh
like,
no, we don't listen. We don't feel like you have to explain it or anything like that.
no,
Certainly,
because it's kind of similar to the thing that happened at the weekend,
Mhm.
because like it was the Man United game. Nakamura
Mhm.
scores the free kick, Boric saves the penalty,
Nice.
Yep.
and I'm from Dumbarton originally, and I'm, if you go to Celtic Park from Dumbarton, the only way to go is by train, so
Yeah.
it's
Mhm.
train from
Yeah.
Belgrove out to wherever you go, and like to save you the whole bit in the middle, like in terms of everything that's happened or whatever, but essentially, like after the game, nothing happened on the train, and I've been on the train, and shit's happened, especially going
Yeah.
back like 15 years or whatever. But genuinely, like the place was dead because everybody was fucked afterwards. Because what a game! How much everybody was singing! Like honestly, everybody was like on the train just reading the program and just like, oh man, what a night! Can't you believe it? Essentially, absolutely ran on E, but empty. But literally, like, see when the doors opened for the platform, I got off at Dumbarton East, and there's Dumbarton East, Dumbarton Central, Dalrioch, and there's maybe about 30, 40 of us that got off. And on the platform, there's a police officer for each one of us. And we literally just got carted like from the train into the vans and drove into the station. And that was the way it went. There was no questions, there was no nothing. Anyone with colours, like scarves or tops or whatever. And that was the way it went. But they looked at the CCTV on the train, and when it went to court, you're a pleading die at first, so you say guilty or not guilty or what you're going to do. And when they got to that, the judge looked at the CCTV and they just went, "What the fuck are we doing here?" Like, as if they're just sitting down doing nothing. It was like
Strange.
wild. And the story back in the day that you would tell yourself, or like people would say, like amongst it, because again it was our mates, we all live in the same place, we all go to Celtic games, you all know everyone that was involved. Was like, maybe they're just getting our, the chat was like, maybe it's like the council doing roadworks to keep their budget kind of vibe, where it's like, oh, if they arrest so many fans, then they can get budget, because that was the vibe back then. But that at the Derby match was not really like that at all, was it? It was much more of a, but again, it was very much that anyone with colours, you're in this situation, and that's the end of it. So, it's so yeah. That just to try and keep it quick. That was that was
it's
the way it went.
I think it's
Thank you.
interesting because as the guy says, you're coming up for a different angle and different experiences. We sat here and all of us universally says, we've never came across these things. Paddy, just to wrap this one up, obviously we've sort of said what we would like to see from this. I think that is the important thing here. And come back to your every action has a reaction type thing. We obviously know that there was a fan fine that came there from UEFA, buttons in the scale, but again, it's meant to be that we were overcrowding and blocking public ways. This is the kind of thing right now. Listen, as far as misdemeanors go or fan issues, that's got to be relatively well down the list. Although you could argue if you were one of those stickers, health and safety, what if something happened? By the by, right? But this is the thing with the fans. We spoke about it the other day, and it is important that we say this. It all comes down to your perception. Now, we read out the legislation. We've done a wee bit of homework so that we could be as level about this as we possibly could. The notion of it's not legal isn't actually true.
Yeah.
It's important we say that because we read the legislation, we've done our homework, we've dug it out, and it says that it was all about potential and likelihood of things happening. Now, again, not to be boring, but folks says, oh, that would never have happened. The reality is in December with hundreds of people in masks all dressed chasing each other down the street. So when you then take that fixture and you bring it to a stadium, not a neutral stadium, and you add into the flavour of the extra allocation, that part of that legislation in order to get that in place of likelihood, it is there. That's the harsh reality of it. Now, that's not to say that people were going to do it or there was going to be issues, but I would be ignorant of is not to say that there is the potential. And unfortunately for anybody involved, that's the bit that sinks it. That's the bit that hooks the fish, so to speak, for it to be allowed to happen.
Aye. The thing is, mate, the probability is that it probably would have happened. Let's be honest. The fans, like I says as well, I turned up a little bit early on that day. So I witnessed the Union Bears. I witnessed them surrounded by the police. Total silence. They were compliant. They were doing everything that they were getting told to do. I walked down towards London Road to see the Celtic fans, and it was a bit different. They were being loud. There was a lot of noise, things like that, and I thought, right, I'm not going down there because I'll end up getting carted.
Because you don't want to be any Quinny's.
I don't want to be in the Quinny book. That's what it was, mate. I turned round and I legged it back to Celtic Park. So, yeah, I think, like you said, Steve, the probability is the way that the council and the police had to look at that, is that it probably would have happened. So they've got to invoke everything that they can. So I think that's why the presence was there. Do I think it was carried out properly? Again, that's all down to your judgment. And I think if one set of fans acted one way and one acted the other, one set of fans got in, the others didn't. It kind of tells you.
And see, just to, I want to bring this one home because I want to drag this out, but I've got to give the final word on this one, Quinny. It's well publicised. There's probably going to be a heavy turnout. You said it. There's going to be a heavy police turnout as well.
Right.
So at that end, neither side can really complain, can they? Like, you can't complain there's too many cops when you're parked outside a cop shop, and equally, whatever the police's take on what happened with the fans, they'll expect large amounts outside.
Yeah. I hope it goes well, essentially, more than anything. I didn't actually, the context that you've added in there is great as well, to be honest with you, because again, those images of them kind of running at each other and fighting and all that on Gale Street.
Yeah.
I'd kind of forgotten about that, to be quite honest with you. So it's definitely relevant context. I've got a wee bit of a natural knee-jerk reaction to just over.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if you've had that experience, you're naturally going to gravitate to that, as I say, and that everyone's entitled to. That's not to diminish your views or what's happening.
No, not at all. I'm enjoying thinking about this as we're going. That's all. But I'm just like, ultimately, hope it goes well.
Yeah. No, certainly, and I'd echo that. I hope it goes without any issue whatsoever. I think that's the most important thing, as I say, and from a fan's perspective, if anybody is deciding to turn up to that thing, I would encourage every single person to try and be in your best behaviour. Don't do anything silly. Do not make a situation potentially worse. So that's it. But as I say, and I'm glad, listening, guys, I really appreciate the sort of debate and the levelness about it, because I listen to a lot of podcasts. As I say, there's brilliant Celts are here. There's many others. Go and check them out. But sometimes I've been listening to stuff over the past sort of day or so, and for different sources. And I'll be honest with you, I was listening to something today and I nearly crashed my car because I was surprised at how blinkered it really was. Now, I'm not saying that we're above that, because we're certainly not, but I just wish that people would look at all the facts and try to be a wee bit level. You might, of course, we're all Celtic fans. We're going to have strong leanings towards our own, but let's just try and be adult about these things and take it as it comes. Anyway, let's get into the meat of what we're here for, guys. The report card. So, domestic, we're on track. We're on track to get that league. We've already got a cup in the bag. Brilliant. Got that back. The treble's very much on. So I asked you guys, when I said there, we'll have a wee look through. We'll course through some of the key results from the league. I want to know, what do you guys think? What was the key results? Outstanding performers, anything that really you think so far in the season's been good, bad, and indifferent. So let's just start straight off with the transfers in the summer. You're a man, Quinny. You do a lot of scouting, you do all this kind of stuff, your fantasy football, and you obviously do a lot of pieces on with Celts are here. Coming out of that summer transfer window, where were you at with Celtic's business for that period?
I was very much at the time jury's out, because Schmeichel was almost certainly, like I said at the time, you have to go a long way back in time before Hart was a better keeper than Schmeichel. It's been a fair length of time that Schmeichel's been a better keeper than Hart, essentially. So it was that was probably always going to pan out kind of the way it has ultimately, just because experience, quality, these things just transfer well, generally speaking. But when you look at Bernardo permanent, Engels record fee 11 rising to 13, Ida getting bent over the barrel and it taking far too long to get done, and Austin Trusty for the thick end of 6 million. Yeah, I was very much jury's out because like I think like Celtic's transfer policy maybe deserves like a lick more trust than what we give them. Like they have got some fair amount of players right over the years, you know, maybe not all of them, and we're quick to remind them of the failings, but they have got a few right. So I was reserving judgment, I suppose. I think for me, like if we're looking at it report card time wise, like from now to then, if I'm doing this right, sorry, but like I think Austin Trusty was the one I had the most focus on because, like, I'm a big Liam Scales guy, right? And one of the things, the main reason I kind of hold myself that way, or people see me that way, is the number one thing I hold on to with Liam Scales is that getting someone who's definitely better than him is going to be very expensive. And I don't think Austin Trusty is definitely better than him. You know, like he is
Absolutely
different.
not.
He does.
Absolutely
He
not.
maybe
Yeah.
makes the team a little bit better, but like, yeah, like you say, like he's not clearly like a better player. You know, where you feel like, oh, we've made a big difference in defense there. And yeah, like that's kind of where I'm at still, where with that. So I think that was one I was a wee bit underwhelmed by, and I think like I don't think I've changed my mind on that one as much. And Engels was weird because, like, again, like I just watch a lot of football. I don't think that's like a brag or anything. It's maybe quite sad to some people, but I watch a lot of football.
Football's life, mate.
Yeah, and I had never heard of Arnott Engels until we went in for him. And that for me, like previously, has been Lagerbielke, has been Palma, has been Tilio, has been normally. And again, like I just some people might think it's sad, some people might think it's cool, whatever. But I watch Japanese football, American MLS, like everything. And when Celtic are linked to guys I've not heard of, I'm always nervous because it's like,
where's this coming from?
Yeah, it's a weird one. So, but I think he's surprised me in a good way. Like I think like he's clearly like that elite level athlete. He's got a great range of passing. But I think the number one thing about him is what we've seen this year through like the criticism he gets. Like he does get criticism, and there is a split
looking
in
at
the
you,
fans.
mate.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because he is like, he's not like, you don't look at him after 2 or 3 games and you know what he's about. It's actually kind of hard to suss that out for the most part. And some games it's obvious, and some games he's just like, did he even play? But I think overall, like, and again, I had Juco James on at my place yesterday. He kind of pointed this out to me, but he hasn't really had a consistent role the whole time he's been here. And he's played on the left, he's played on the right, he's played deeper, he's played here, he's played there. And I think overall, like, he's done better than I would have expected when we signed him, you know? So I think overall, like, I'm still probably about par for the transfer window in the summer, whereas, like, don't think any of them were rubbish signings, but did they really make us better? Like,
well, that's true. Yeah, what about yourself, Joe? Paddy and I, we obviously spoke. We done the transfer window and closed it out, and we at the end of that, we felt like we were a wee bit light. Now, yes, we did go and we spent money on Engels, we spent money on Ida, Bernardo, Permanent, all very, very nice. And as Quinny says, I think maybe with Ida, whether you like it or not, the fees are relevant. I think we should have paid it. We should comfortably be able to pay that kind of fee. But we were burnt over the barrel. We paid over the odds. Let's be really honest here. And maybe even an extent we maybe overpaid for Engels as well, because if we cast our mind back, if we made that signing or that approach when O'Reilly was still in the building, it doesn't show you that you desperately need someone as quickly. And I believe his valuation was around about €7 million about that time. So you need a player tax. We've got a player you want tax. And before you know it, you're 11 or whatever. But did you feel that we were a wee bit light? Do you think that it was a lot of money on paper, but it was grabbing and scrambling, and it could have been a lot smoother? Get your business done early.
I thought it showed a bit of despotism, in all honesty. I think we paid what we paid for Ida.
You just coined a new word there.
I understand. What?
You just coined a new word. I think the word you're looking for is desperation.
Same thing.
As a report card, mate, I'm going to act like a teacher here.
Exactly, clearly. So desperation is what it kind of rang off for me, because it was Ida was fair enough. I understand it. He had good performances that made it look, yep, he's the right way to go. And we were all singing for it. We were all singing off the same hymn sheet with that one. I totally agree with Quinny. Engels, hadn't heard of him, hadn't heard about performances, everything like that. I thought, can they really come into the midfield and make it better? was the big question for me. And
Oh,
see, for the
to
first
jump
half
in
of the
that,
season,
compare
I
him
don't think
against
he
who
did.
went out. What do you think of him versus Matt Riley? Now, obviously, with the benefit of Matt Riley experience and getting to see him, but do you think you go, well, we don't miss Matt Riley? Do you feel that way?
It's a difficult one. It brought a bit of flair to the game that I don't think Engels has as of yet, which is fair because it's only been a single season, so you can't really judge it as of yet. But no, I just think that for his fee, he wasn't worth it at the time. I think he is very much becoming his own now, and that he's gelling really well
Yeah.
with the rest of the team, and that he's communicating better with the likes of McGregor and Hatate as well, and really linking up with them a lot better as well, and creating those opportunities that need to be unfortunately passed right to the foot of Ida, because that's just the way that he plays. But again, hopefully we'll start to see a bit of change in him, and a bit more hunger for it. I think he's very hungry for the goals, but he's not as hungry to put the work in, like for instance Maeda is. So
Well,
that's
and
where
that's
I
the thing.
stand on it.
We've got some plenty of food for thought there, and obviously it'll be interesting when we get into the sort of this summer, because there's undoubtedly we need work to do there. But yeah, I mean, I do. I felt that for me, I would say if I was to grade it off, I would probably say it was about a B. I thought it could have been better. I thought that we could have done a wee bit more, maybe pushed the boat out. I think that we done maybe the bare minimum, which is usually Celtic's way, unfortunately. But it is what it is. So we went into the season and. Well, that, it's your lot until you get to January, and just to get right into the meat of the season, as McLaughlin saying, the first 19 games were fantastic. Now, obviously, we kick off with a comprehensive 4-0 win versus Kelly, but a surprise happens because we get that early lead because Rangers draw against Hearts. So in terms of that, I was having a wee look between August through to September. There were some really decent results there. Yeah, 2-0 away win to Hibs, mate, and a 3-0 away to St Mirren. Hibs in particular, we'll go on to Hibs later in the season, VAR and all that kind of stuff. But we had quite a difficult start in terms of aways there. And then, of course, we beat Rangers in that first derby 3-0, goals for Kyogo, Cal McGregor and Maeda. Very nice, plus 4 points at the September at the end of the first derby. For yourself, kicking off the season, Paddy, in that earlier stages of the game, that first 19, what was the sort? Was there any real games that made you stand up and go, right, this could be a right good season?
You touched on the Celtic Rangers game, mate. For me, I'll kind of judge our season on what we do against them. And I was lucky enough to be at the 3-0 game at Celtic Park, and I thought that day we were outstanding to a man. I thought that was the game where everybody stood up and was counted. The goal for Cal McGregor was unreal. The shot from outside the box when he bent it right round Jack Butland, it was just an absolute joy to be at. There was grown men round about me, just head in the hands, going, "Oh, this is unbelievable, best one I've seen," and things like that. And do you know what it was? It was just a fantastic performance. That for me was when I went, "Yeah, this is a team going forward that we're going to do a lot of damage this season."
I hope you're not going to judge our performances in our season against Rangers this season so far, mate, because there's still mileage in that one. There's still some mileage there.
We'll wait and see. But like I said, mate, that for me was the kind of big performance. Other ones where we've kind of got a goal in the last minute and things like that. There was one up at Ross County, wasn't there? A kind of late minute, 89th minute, fucking goal at the death to get us through, and things like that. That's the most important things is getting it over the line, even when you have a Snydery game, even when you don't play really well, but you get the result and you dig in. And Celtic, for me, are always one of the clubs where they dig in, they go all the way to the 90th minute. And that's what we have to be doing. And I did see that at the beginning of the season, and we spoke about it being a Brendan Rodgers team, and you can see that starting to gel together now. You're on mute, Steve-O.
There we go. Try to be polite and all that. But as it says, we've covered this, and yourself, Quinny, I'm familiar with yourself with some of your takes on it. The start of the season was really, really bright. It was really, we're scoring, we're looking confident. We saw that transition between the tail end of last season where we really kicked on for January, and then through that pre-season with a rare Celtic occurrence. We had a fantastic looking pre-season, and we started to bring that in, obviously with the shining lights of the form of Kuhn. He looked like a completely transformed player. Of course, we can discuss what we think of that maybe now, but it was a right good fiery start for Celtic. Obviously, the banking, the win against Rangers was nice. Always nice to kick that off there. But in that earlier stage between sort of August all the way through to November, it was the surprise package was maybe Aberdeen, who were flying high. We know Rangers were dropping points left, right, and centre. And by the time we got to the end of November, Celtic were sitting pretty. But how did you feel like that Aberdeen challenge, and particularly that first a game, that 2 each with them? How did you think of the front end of the season, mate?
I really enjoyed it. I think one of the key differences, or one of the really great things that we enjoyed early season was, like, I've been calling Kasper Schmeichel the big green clean sheet machine this season, which maybe tells you a bit about my childhood, perhaps. But Joe Hart was great and all that, right? But he wasn't a huge lover of clean sheets, was he? Like,
No.
it was, like Celtic both to score was probably the best bet, and when Joe Hart was there, But we went through a mad amount of clean sheets in the early parts of the season, and defensively as well, we just looked a lot better. Like, for the last couple of years, and I'm not just saying this to be tongue in cheek, right? But sincerely, for the last 3 seasons, for me, our hardest game has always been in the top 2 or top 3 hardest matches of the season. It's been St Mirren away. St Mirren have always been pretty damn plucky, always got something on the go, never off the hook with them until you're 2 goals ahead or more. And in middle of August, we go away there. We beat them 3-0 before the derby, 3-0, Hearts 2-0, Bratislava. But the big one for me in that kind of vein was the Motherwell game after drawing Atalanta, because normally it's, if we do get those Herculean kind of results or whatever, there's the tendency of a dodgy away game at the weekend. Yeah, maybe it goes against you. But again, Motherwell, I would put right up there with St Mirren as, like, especially away. Like, if somebody's going to give us a bit of a fright and make us work for earn our money, or make the players earn their money, it's going to be Motherwell away. And again, off the back of Atalanta going there and beating them 3-0, that was definitely a big result. I thought it made a bit of a difference because we'd got the Bratislava win, we got that huge draw, and we were mixing it up with clean sheets, scoring goals, and then, like, doing it midweek and weekend. And I've just opened it up just to refresh my memory a little bit more on it. But yeah, like, we rotated for that match as well. James Forrest plays, McKeown scores a goal from a start, Alex Valley played it as well. And to go away, away to St Mirren clean sheet, away to Motherwell clean sheet, those were the 2 ones that kind of stood out to me at the time as, like, this is a markable difference. I've
got that in my notes as well, because you always know what you're getting from Motherwell and St Mirren. Very well drilled, very well organised, workmanlike performances without being hatchet men. They try to do the right things and play. And for me, absolutely, particularly off the back of the Motherwell, as you say, is be bit of rotation off the back of a game where sometimes there's a sting in the tail, there's a Euro hangover. No, good. It was very, very positive. But for yourself, anything to add in there, Joe? As I says there, I'm having a wee look through the notes. Come the end of 30th November, Celtic we're getting an 11-point gap over Rangers. And of course, we then get a wee bit clear because Aberdeen, they stumble. They have their draw with Hibs, and that gets us properly clear at the top. That first sort of between August to December, really, some really fantastic results in there. But we said this when it got down to the post, unfortunately, the game against Rangers there, where we says there has been a lot of slice of luck that you maybe wouldn't have normally got, because, as we said, Aberdeen were the ones that were really pushing on. They eventually fell away, squad and all that kind of stuff. But to have a look between there and December, to finish at top of the table, 14 points clear ahead of Rangers, 30 goal difference with 48 scored, and 16 clear on Aberdeen. Massive slice of luck there. A lot of drop points for Rangers in particular. Let's be real here. But ruthless
to be
enough,
so
mate.
dominant in that first half of the season, and then does it just show then that we've maybe took our foot off the gas a wee bit? Because that's the disappointing thing for me. That's the disappointing thing for me. I go, well, we should have closed this off by now, surely. Going at that pace, definitely. So you're going, well, what's happened? What's happened in that time? What players have been changed in? What players have been changed out? Who's not getting the time on the pitch? Who is? These are the things that maybe they have to look at and look back on the season. So, I mean, one of the biggest highlights for me, of course, when we went 16 points clear. I think we can all agree that is one of the best moments ever. But we should have been that 2 months earlier, or
Well,
near
that's
enough.
true.
So that's the way I felt about it. But as you say, yes, a good bit of luck did play into it. I really enjoyed the rivalry with Aberdeen at the start of the season. I thought that was fantastic, and I thought it was friendly in a way, but a bit. Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
well, I mean, it was
yeah,
friendly. There was a
you know.
genuine shared dislike or hate
Yes,
for
aye,
Rangers, of course. And
exactly.
happy
As long as
win
it
for me.
wasn't them.
So there's that there. But I mean, I haven't a wee look through the notes, and there's some good stuff in there. I think in terms of we look at maybe negatives, Paddy, the two each with Aberdeen, right? They were good value for money, right? We were flying, we took a nice early lead, but then within 10 minutes, we sort of collapsed and we couldn't see it the game. But again, spoils shared, didn't really make much of a difference because of the Rangers form there. They were well off the pace. And then, of course, the only criticism I've got in that first half of the season was the Dundee United game, 0-0, which I thought was an absolute stinker.
That was the one. Yeah, that was the one we were going into and we're kind of expecting to kick on. I think I called a 4-0 in that one as well.
Paddy, you call 4-0
As
every
always,
week.
that's if you do watch a show, Quinny, every single week when he has to say make a prediction, I'm saying 4-0 all the time. It doesn't matter who we're playing. I'm like, 4-0. You know what I mean? But yeah, obviously watching that, and I think it was one of the games as well. The United keeper had 7, 8 absolute worldies. He just did one of the games where Celtic could have played
Brilliant
for 2
game,
days
actually.
and not scored.
Credit is due there. Brilliant. But at the same time, I didn't feel we were very potent. Sorry, mate.
Yeah. Again, it's that final third part as well. We've seen that in a few games this season. Now, listen, Celtic aren't going to go out there every single game. As much as we as fans expect it, you're not going to get that demolition every single week. You're not going to get that performance. If you look back to last year, we were getting one half. Steve, remember we were getting the first half was good and the second half was garbage.
Yeah,
or your first half was garbage, the second half was better. But then we started to see more progressive performances, and now we're winning both halves and we're winning games convincingly. And then when you went into the Dundee United game, and you think 0-0 at half time, right? Yeah, Brendan will tell him a new one. We'll get something back here. But again, like you said, there just wasn't. I don't know what it was in that game. It was just kind of lackluster. It was kind of, we had some chances. Yes, their keeper had an absolute worldie, but it was one of the games that you just couldn't get across the line. And it was the kind of first point where you realised that you weren't going to be battering teams every single week.
It was the turning point kind of thing for you, wasn't it? Especially,
listen, it's a mere fly in the ointment. It wasn't all disastrous, as we well know. But listen, there's plenty in that first half between up to December. There's plenty of stuff to talk about, actually. So take your pick. What's your poison, Quinny? You know, we obviously had the cup. We get to the cup. We've got a absolute demolishment job of Aberdeen at Hampden. I thought, for me, key results, I thought that was really the one that says, no, see your 2 each at Celtic Park, complete and utter one-off. That is never going to happen again. And of course, we never look back in terms of that title challenge. Maybe that's the result that absolutely derailed Aberdeen with the sort of, you know, the wee bit of gusto that they had, the bit of wind in their sails. But really, really good. Of course, we get the game against Rangers. That maybe in the cup final, Quinny, did that maybe set the tone, or did it make you sort of have a wee look? We've talked about sort of dull draws with Dundee United night, but I looked at that game against Rangers and I didn't see that coming. That's the only negative I'd have for the front end of the year. Despite getting the cup, I think it was maybe a wee precursor to what's been happening.
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I think all those kind of derby matches that we've had after the first one this year have been like really frustrating on their own individual basis, like how the game's panned out, lessons not learned, or an ability to kind of change in the game for thinking about the first one. I just realised, but as you guys started talking, I never actually said anything about Aberdeen when you asked me to, so I'm really sorry for that.
No.
But I think the title challenge that they offered was fun. We all got behind it. I just wanted to add that in. And I think the 6-0 thing was definitely like the revenge of Brendan on that one was like you said, like, don't think that's going to happen twice, kind of thing. But in that front half of the year, like in terms of the results, just the one I would want to throw in to this before we get to derbies and stuff like that is probably the Leipzig game. I mentioned Atalanta
Yeah.
earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Leipzig was
Yeah.
massive. It was certainly like a huge kind of highlight point
Yeah.
of the season because, again, like I mentioned before, like we're kind of coming into this year hoping to develop, hoping to, kick on in some way. And like, although we're kind of sitting here, and I kind of said it earlier with the transfer window, like unconvinced in some areas, like after we drew with Atalanta and by the time we beat Leipzig, we were all thinking about where's the final, like we're gonna win the group, we're gonna
I'm
finish.
glad you brought some of the European stuff in there actually, because I says we've got so much football overlap in there, but the European stuff, yeah, I agree with you. Leipzig, I think, was probably our most complete Champions League performance. It had all the action, but the football, the fluidity, it was all coming together. You look at smashing Bratislava, that is what it is. Great results, obviously, against Bayern Munich with the draw and, of course, Atalanta. But no, I think for me, the Leipzig one was probably the best performance of the season up to date, I'd say. So, but but the European, did you enjoy the new format, Quinny, of the Champions League? I know it got a lot of detractors and a lot of haters.
Oh yeah, I love it. I think Paddy was going to come in there, but he's on mute. That's what I was trying to say to him.
Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, no, listen, it's all good. When you were talking about the Leipzig game obviously was a real highlight. But for me, I think one of the most pivotal turning points of our season was the Atalanta game. That was the one for me where I seen a proper Celtic defence, a proper defensive performance, and that was the one where I kind of took a bit of note and went, yeah, we can push on here. We can actually do something in the Champions League. We can progress for here. Because obviously you're looking at it going in and you're going, right, yeah, we'll beat Bruges, we'll beat Young Boys, we'll beat this one, we'll beat that one. That's what Celtic fans do, isn't it? You kind of look at it and go, yeah, we might get someone in Dortmund. That worked out well for us. But then obviously after that, you go, right, we've got Atalanta away. Let's not get scalped. Yeah. And you go into that one and you come away with a nothing each draw away to a team that were the finalists last year. And you're like, wow, excellent. Look at what we just did there. And it was an amazing performance. And then going from that, I think that was the one that obviously pushed us on and helped us going into the Leipzig game. I think we went into that with a lot of confidence. And that's kind of where we pushed on for. So that was a biggie for me.
See, the European stuff, Quinny, just to get your sort of thoughts on it, is you jokingly says once we started motoring, you're like, we could go deep, where's it going to go? We sat and you maybe get a wee bit of criticism, and you know yourself, you put your opinion out here, you do these podcasts, you put your opinion out on the line, and everybody's going to agree with it. We sat here and we says that, yeah, do you know, see if I'd asked you blindly and I says, these are the teams you're going to get, this is where you're going to be at this stage, you would have snapped the hand off for it. But as we well know, once performances start getting better, expectations shift and you expect a wee bit more. You know, we look at in particular the Dinamo Zagreb game, which I thought was quite frankly scandalous. There was the wee hiccup against Bruges. Again, people point to where they ended up, but still in isolation as a game. Did you feel that, what was the reasoning? What happened with the European thing when we had the highs and looking where we could say we could maybe potentially break into top 10, top 8? I know that's pipe dream stuff now, but it was a reality at the time, and I just felt that those results were dropping. It was disappointing, even though it was still not losing, it was draws.
Yeah. I think like overall, like the Champions League format, that's like, again, you kind of gave this to me a second ago and I never quite got there, sorry, but I think the format really suits us in this sense, and this is something that we're going to now just have to come to live with as Celtic fans over the next couple of years, is like, you know, who are the 8 games that we get drawn against, and then having to negotiate good results and keep that momentum going. I think Bruges and Zagreb, I'm totally with you, and I think I caught at least one of those streams you did on here after those games anyway. But I think both of them were massive points missed. The thing with Bruges is obviously Carter Vickers with the mad freak occurrence thing is, it's kind of hard to really, hold that against him like we've done in the past with other players when they get sent off or something bad happens. But I think in the Bruges and the Zagreb game really frustrated me because I felt the problem we had with Bruges was like, I can't remember the specifics of how the match went and what my, in terms of, route to goals and that kind of stuff where we're kind of lacking, but it was lacking like pushing the envelope. Let's win this game. We're at home. We are better than them. Like they scored first, and then like they didn't really offer too much. I was not worried about Bruges as the game went on, and that was really 2 points missed. And then in Zagreb were injury stricken like mad, changed
crazy.
manager, all sorts of crap had been going on, and they didn't lay a glove on us. I don't think Schmeichel had anything to do from memory.
No,
Maybe there was a shot and I'm forgetting it,
Yeah.
but huge. I think they're kind of symptomatic of the transfer window. Like, I think if there was I think the overpay on Ida and Engels, that's probably just cost Rodgers a player in that window ultimately,
Most likely,
yeah. Like if we got Ida for 6 and Engels for 7, there's another player sitting there on the transfer budget. You bet your bottom dollar to try to spend that money. And I think that was kind of, because I think like the way Celtic have went with Champions League before is like it's about maximising the amount of money you're spending to get the most amount of Champions League revenue. So try and spend as little to get as much as possible. And I think they were happy to push the boat out with Engels and Ida because it was guaranteed 8 games. That's a bigger Champions League group stage than what we normally get. TV money should be a bit chunkier, etc. And then when it came to, we can get into the latter part of it, obviously, in a second, I suppose. But I think like the hesitation maybe to not just, we've had to overpay on those 2 guys. The hit list is still the hit list. And if we need to go and spend an extra bit now because of it, then so be it. The squad needs it.
Absolutely.
Because Palma, not up to scratch. Nobody thought Yang pre-season was going to be a Champions League utility player for us.
Yeah.
Odenholm, there was clearly like space in the squad. You guys all said it. We were light. It's clear to see for everyone that we were missing in our body. And I think that's the player that's why those results came that way. So I'm ultimately frustrated with that as well. But it gives me a bit of hope that even if we're to jump ahead, to go forwards, to go backwards, with how close the Bayern game was, you really do hope that they think, fuck it, let's just buy the guys. Let's just go and get Brendan 6 guys, and let's roll the dice. Let's go for it. Why not? Because
they've came so close to see where they possibly could have been. So yeah, as you say, just go and spend the money. Just do it, because it could pay off tenfold in such a short period of time.
And Joe, look at it here. As we said earlier on, with the qualifiers, we have a short route to get there. And we've all seen the projected teams that you could play. Of course, again, just to throw them at Bratislava, were one off. And that's the way we've got to look at it. You've got to speculate to accumulate. Cliches, I know, but I've said it time over. Invest in the squad where, in theory, the domestic stuff should take care of itself. Better team, better squad against what you're playing against, but it gives you that fighting chance in Europe. Now, we've looked at it and we've seen the way the coefficient's going to change and stuff, and probably after this season coming, it's going to get a wee bit more difficult for Celtic to get in around the Champions League. Now, in terms of the format, I love it. I think it's plays in favour of teams like ourselves to punch a wee bit above your weight. Of course, it's always down to which your home games versus your away games. They fell quite well for us this season. But yeah, I think that the board and the manager should be optimistic. They should be looking at that and saying, why not? Let's push on. Could we look at the opposite side of town? Yeah, like Europa League, whatever. That's the only thing that's a maybe slight, it's you want your cake and eat it. The Champions League's the big table. You want to be in amongst that. You want that money. You want to be playing those teams. But then when I break it down, I think I genuinely believe Celtic could go far in the Europa League. I do.
I know.
I really do. And there's no some sort of drop down. I think it's a 3-year phase. Am I right in saying that, Quinny? This new format is going to get reviewed after 3 years. Would you have any worry over the provision of the big teams wanting to get that changed up? Because there's quite a few that have fallen.
I think, I hope they don't open up the trapdoor, to be honest with you. I like that the Celtic board are being like pushed into the fire here with this. Like, no, we need to play Champions League football, and you need to spend the money for it. Like there's no, let's just finish in the top 28 and we'll play Europa League and that'll be fine. I kind of like the taking the stabilizers off kind of vibe about it. But I do get that we're missing a huge opportunity to maybe have an actual run where we get to the final and all the rest of it, which is a bit more feasible in the Europa League. But I do think the trapdoor, like, it looks feasible now, right? Because the Europa League is protected. No Champions League teams are in that this year. See if you look at the Conference League, by the way, for the quarterfinals, it looks like somebody's playing Pro Evo. Like it is, it's wild. And I like that. See if like Hearts did all right in that one day. Honestly, the round that they're at, the quarterfinals, and you won't believe some of the teams that have made it there. There's some big teams like Betis and Chelsea or whatever, but that was like it.
Just some randomers.
Yeah, in the Europa League, like, for whoever else is in there, like, heaven forbid we ever end up in there because of, qualifiers and shit, But even if that, I don't think you want the drop down coming, because if you did find yourself in it, then like, if you're a good Europa League team, then that kind of means something in that tournament, and you're not then just going to get wild carded out of it after the drop down.
And that's the thing. I like what you're saying about taking the stabilisers off, because that's the thing we've heard before when we got the, the accounts published and it was the quote off. We've had to, in events where we might not make Champions League qualification, or you're kind of, you've got that fallback, you've got that sort of parachute. Of course, that could still happen to us. We could still just not get through the qualifier, but I don't like that idea where they're always sort of thinking of what might happen. What might happen? No. Put what's in front of you. The Champions League, you want to be there. We've had the favour of being a couple of seasons on the bounce. You're getting paid handsomely for it. We've done better this season, far more money. When those accounts come out next year or later on, it's going to be absolutely more of the same. There is no excuses here, and we've got to crack on. And Paddy, you say that all the time.
Listen, see, when you think about it, right, you said obviously Slovan Bratislava are one of the teams. The other ones are Basel, Karabag, Ludogorets, or Sturm Graz. Now, over 2 legs, one obviously being at Celtic Park.
Is it flipping to say if you can't beat any of the team, you don't deserve it? Is it?
Yeah, 100%. But we can't say that, because that's where you fall on your face previously.
But when you look at it, that's realistically what it is. If you don't beat these teams, you don't deserve to be in the Champions League. It's as simple as that. You can't fucking mess up against a team like Slovan Bratislava or Sturm Graz. Like, Karabag, the only issue with that for us would be travelling.
Of course.
It's the bit away, but the dodgy pitches and stuff. But yeah, listen, all of the teams, I would fully expect a strong Celtic side to push through, and I would expect the board to be looking at that as well, going, do you know what, we bring in, we strengthen, we can go again.
Yeah, we've got to match the ambitions of the fans this season. I think we've got a taste for it there, where there is no excuse. We'll move on. Let's fast forward, get ourselves up to date here from that January onward. Of course, coming to January, transfer window period. The big one, let's just get it straight out there, was, letting Kyogo go seemed like a right strange thing to do. Particularly when we are light. But who would have thought that Daisen Maeda would have kicked on to be no hair, no flair, all hail haired Daisen, because this is what a setting coming, if you want to call it that, because it's been a transformation I've never seen before. I cast my mind back to when we signed him, coming over with the equivalent from Asia of the Golden Boot, top goal scorer and all that, and you're thinking, what a striker. And then when we got to see him those early seasons, you're like, this guy was a striker, but what is he actually doing? I'm bouncing off him and everything and that, but kicks on, and we get Jota back at the other end as well. That's one of those sliding doors moment where I think it all comes together. In terms of just tooling up for January, Paddy, happy with that one? Any, like the Kyogo things, that still stick you?
Yeah, we didn't really bring anybody in for Kyogo. Obviously, we got Jota, and that was a kind of, we'll bring him in to take the sting off it. Of course it was. We get Johnny Kenny back. But again, hasn't really been given a chance. I think the issue with the young lad Cummings as well, letting him go far too early, I think he'd have been a decent one to kind of put in there. I just think it's a part of the season where we need to be looking at strengthening our squad. It was a part of the season where we needed to go, do you know what, we're going to lose a striker here, let's bring another striker in. And it was something that we didn't do. We lost a striker and brought in a left winger. Yes, we had Daisen Maeda who could play through the middle, and listen, he's kicked on and he's done absolutely fantastic. But for me, it was one of these stages where you had to go out and make a kind of statement by. We messed up with the Majowski thing as well. We spoke about that at the very beginning. I thought he would have been one that we should have jumped on. He was proven in the league and whatever else. And now you look at him, he's out there, he's struggling. He's not kicked off as well as he thought he would have. But listen, look at Kyogo again. You just need to look at the minutes he's had, or the lack of minutes, shall I say.
Over before it even started for him.
It's ridiculous. There was actual talk on one of the pages there about him coming back for about $5.5 million. And I was like, you know what? Would you take him back at this stage? Is it do you turn around and go, yeah, we sold you for 10, one back for 5? You know what I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you do there, mate. It's just madness.
Have you any thoughts on that kind of thing there, Quinny, in terms of the Kyogo going? We all know that we wanted, the manager says he didn't really want to play Maeda through the middle. He sort of says, I've sold a striker, I want to replace him with a striker. Maybe it's one of those, it's a tough window and all that kind of stuff, but it did seem like a right strange one. Do you think we've maybe got away with one with the way things have panned out?
I think so for a few reasons. Like, I love Kyogo as much as an ex-Celtic fan, but I've never been like, I don't know. I've always had a couple of wee pet peeves with Kyogo the time he's been with us for a few things. Like, one of them is with Dyson Maeda, because like, I used to see us on the channel all the time doing match breakdowns whenever we'd have the two of them in the same team.
Mm-hmm.
But the amount of times, especially at 0-0, because at 0-0 is when it bothers me the most, the amount of times Kyogo would not square Dyson for a tap-in is criminal. Like, criminal. I'd have fined his wages so many times it wouldn't be true. You know what I mean? Like, at 0-0, it's like, it's a thing, you know, like, and he misses most of these things he doesn't square off for. So I've always had in the back of my head that they're not best mates. You know what I mean? Dyson's getting in the Japan team. Kyogo isn't he? Kyogo never sets him up and stuff like that. When they celebrate, I don't know. I've just always had it in my head that maybe, I don't know. I don't want to call anyone names or anything like that. Right? But I'm quite close to it. But I've always had in the back of my head that Kyogo's maybe not like, you know, I don't see any of the players greeting that he's gone, really. You know, it's a wee bit of, Kyogo, we miss him and whatever. But, you know, you see photos of like Taylor and O'Reilly and all that. They're going to Dubai for training camps with Starfelt and stuff like that. You know, Kyogo's away by himself on a ferry to Aaron. So, like, his shoulder injury refuses to get the surgery for as well. Guess what his injury is at Rennes? It's his shoulder injury, you know. And reportedly, like, the thing with Rennes is they sacked their manager, brought in a guy called Sampaoli, who you might know used to manage Barca, and he's kind of been around the block a little while. He's like one of these Bielsa types where it's like attacking football, and he's a bit mad as well. If you follow, he's got some stories. If you Google him, you'll have a good time reading it. So he comes in to replace the last guy. Doesn't like Jota, doesn't like a few of the other ones, and he wants Kyogo. And then the deal happens that way, as far as I understand it anyway. He wants Kyogo. And literally like a week or two after the transfer's done, he's a mad bastard. And he like blows up and he has a fight with him and all that, and he just quits. You know, he's there for like 3 weeks, spends all their money. So
it's mental, isn't it?
That's
absolutely mental.
It's like Craig White.
Yeah. So as I understand it, I think Rennes would take 3 million for him. It might be 5 million, but they're just saying like, because the new manager's come in and he's like, I don't want this guy Kyogo.
Yeah, what is he? What? Joe, I mean, in terms of like, yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, a bit of a head scratcher. He obviously wanted away, Joe. He said he wanted away. There's this great belief among the fan base that if you don't want to be here, then that's fine, right? He was dropping off, right? He was dropping off. There's no doubt about it. But
that was going to be my point there. From about, I want to say the start of November or so, I noticed a massive drop in his game, and that he just didn't seem to have the same drive and passion to chase down every single one, and he kind of looked a bit lackluster in the middle of the pitch, and I was going, why is this happening? Like, what is going on now? Of course, we later found out he was supposedly wanting away from the team for a while, but we didn't know that as fans at the time, but we could all see something happening. Now, every now and then, he still stuck one in, and we're going, there's Kyogo back and everything like. But no, he wasn't. He was just doing it because he knows it's better. It was better for his career as well, you know. Now, good on him getting the sign with Rennes, fair enough. But as Connie said, it's just going to pot now anyway. Would I take him back? I'm not a big believer in taking any players back, and some people will jump on me in the comments for that.
What about Jota?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Jota, I disagree on this. I disagree with myself on this occasion with Jota, because I thought he was a brilliant player at the time. I was really sad to see him go, and I'm glad that he feels like he's found home again, and that's the big thing for me. I think if Kyogo came again, same. But he's not. He's not.
No, I get where he's coming. I get where he's coming from.
I understand.
I think the one thing we've got to look at is with Kyogo, he stayed with us for a decent length of time, okay? And he'd
Yeah.
obviously made his mind up. He didn't seem to force anything through, so there's
No.
no ill feeling there. But no, I actually just don't think that the manager would bring him back. We often says, is he Brendan Rodgers' type of player? And I think it was more a case he played him because it was the best he thought he had. Of
Yeah.
course, as we says, I know the manager sees these guys every day in training. Would he have maybe thought that Maeda would have stepped up the way he has? Possibly not. I think he might have even caught the manager by surprise there. And it's just one of those happy accidents, something that's happened well for us because his big sign is when he says, you know, he's had a meter, bent over a barrel. That one, jury's still out. Of course, we know that. But in terms of that strange one, I think we get away with it. And between January and now, it has largely been pretty plain sailing. I think the only minor criticism we'd have is we knew that we were going to qualify with Champions League. You didn't know who you were going to be up against. And that feels like a misstep where there was potential riches to be had. And when you looked at the game against Bayern Munich, yeah, great results over the two legs. We gave a right good account of ourselves, but you just felt that if there was that wee extra bit, someone on that bench that you could really turn to grab the game, no disrespect, Yang's came on, but I don't want to be looking at my bench and saying, let's bring on Yang, get him on the pitch and hope that something happens. Or even let's bring on Adam Ida when we knew what his form was like up to that point. I think that's the key thing in terms of me just for the January. It feels a wee bit like missteps. I don't know. It feels a wee bit like missteps. It is what it is. We've got things to address come the summer. But to fast forward and bring ourselves bang up to date, I'm having a wee look through from January onwards. It's largely been pretty plain sailing. Of course, we know that Rangers have perished with some terrible results, but I suggest the elephant in the room because it's been a January loss, 3-0 to them, and then, of course, we have the most recent one at Celtic Park. Connie, how much do you really take away for this? We're cruising, and everybody will tell me to just look at the table, and you don't get any results for that. I've often said you don't want to finish a season with a worse head-to-head against your opponents. Facts of the matter are, in the past 3 games, they've scored 9 against us. They seem like they might have worked out how to play against us, as do a lot of teams. And my criticism has been the manager learned, as you say, and we've talked about with Europe, adapt for Europe. Why do we not do it domestically? Why do we keep trying to we will play our football when it'll happen?
It's crazy, isn't it? And it feels like, it does feel like it's deliberate from him that he's not doing it, because the first game where, you know, when we have those 2 games with the final and the league so close to one another, they've been the exact same matches from how they set up and ran the match and how we set up and tried to, you know, just ignore what they were doing and just do our thing, which I think is the main thing he's telling himself is like, we don't change for them. They'll just need to deal with us and we're just going to do our thing and that'll be good enough. And I can get behind that. And I do get behind that. But like one of the things, I've been a huge fan of Rodgers on his return. And one of the things I think he's done great at is this substitutions, is changing the match. Like you guys said before, like some of the games where it's a crap first half, like Brendan is the catalyst to making the second half differently. He makes decisions, subbing people on, change something, you know, he does something and it turns better for the second half. So I think he's had like a really good hand on the wheel, which makes it so baffling when we go into these games and we're ignoring the first game of the second game. And then even into this last one, we're ignoring the new manager changing their shape a bit. And it's still the same kind of game plan, right? I get his very confident press conference where he's like, I still see the same Rangers essentially, you know, is what he was giving it. But like that changed a bit. And I don't know. I think it's all on Brendan, to be honest with you. Just like sticking to this is the way we do it, and we'll make up for the wrongs of last time by plowing on even harder this time. You know, similar to Aberdeen, because that's kind of the way Aberdeen worked out. You know, after the 2-2 draw, like you mentioned, we didn't change anything for Aberdeen, but we went out and scalped them 6-0. You know, because we wanted to. You know, and I feel like he's trying to kind of manifest that again. And Rangers just are better than Aberdeen, so much so that you can't get away with that with them as much. You know. And I kind of coined it after the last match we had with them, that, and it kind of actually ties into what we were just talking about. But I think we fought in the last match. It should have been Champions League versus Europa League, but it wasn't. You know, left that game very much. It felt like a Europa League match we just played. So, and I think that's why the last game has that significance, Steve-O, because I'm with you. Like, the titles, the trebles aren't diminished, but like, you definitely want bragging rights. You definitely want control of the fixture in some way. And if the only way we can kind of get that coming out this season is by winning the last one and winning it in good fashion, then like I think that we need to do that. You know, there's a lot of them, especially because it'll be away as well. There will be a
Yeah,
nice
of
little.
course.
Yeah. You look at our bench in the Glasgow derby there as well. That was one of the things, Quinny. Obviously, you're talking about the substitutions and things that Brendan's made, and throughout the season, it's for me and Steve-O spoke about it. It's been like for like you're taking off Arne Engels, you're bringing on Paulo Bernardo, or you're taking off Bernardo, you're bringing on Hatate. Do you know what I mean? We had that level of consistency. You're taking off Alistair Johnson, you're bringing on Anthony Ralston, who was doing a great job. There was always a like for like in each position. Now that Glasgow derby there, you looked at the bench and we had Francis Turley, Yang, Adam Ida, and obviously Adam Ida's not playing well at the minute, and there's a few other young lads in there as well. Their names obviously go away from me at the minute, but looking at that substitutions bench for me was one that I actually struggled with. I looked at it and went, where are we going to make the difference here if this first 11 doesn't do the damage? And that was where I struggled. And what's your thoughts on that?
I agree, Paddy. I think that the bench, it comes back to, again, is it missteps in January? Injuries will happen. These kind of things will always crop up. But yeah, it's definitely, it was disappointing to see that. And I can see a lot of opinions are coming through. And ultimately, yeah, the trophies are always going to matter. And we look back in the season, the pictures will open, it'll be Celtic with the trophies, and that is it. But there's just it's like a wee mini league. I know you don't get a trophy for it. I know you don't, jokes aside and that, but yeah, you just don't want to feel like they're gaining any sort of ground on you. Yes, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. However, as we've said before, in seasons gone by, obviously maybe not recent seasons, I'm talking about maybe Rangers 0.1, but back then, when it was Rangers, derbies often decided title destinations, and I don't think this gravy train of them being absolutely mince is going to happen continually and continue to be the case. We've got to have our wits about us, we've got to tool up, we've got to prepare, and we've got to take it from there. But we'll cross that when we get to it. So let's wrap this one all up then. It says, bring ourselves up to where we are at the moment. We're sitting healthy. We probably should have been 19 ahead. A couple of people are going to say that'll be the case here. Of course, we'll look at Hearts, but then they've got Dundee. That could be tasty. There's always room for a slip up there. And what's quite funny is because Rangers beat us 3-0 in January, but then, of course, they went and they drew with Dundee and they lost some points and lost some ground. So who's to say that isn't going to happen after this wee victory for them? That's such the way that's unpredictable, that. But we find ourselves in a strong position, as it says, to bring it home in terms of the players. We'll just get around the clock. We'll start with yourself, Paddy. If I was to say to you in boring terms, in terms of Europe and domestically, how are you rating both for A through to D for your domestic and for your European?
European, mate, I would probably give us a B due to the slip up, obviously, at Bruges and Zagreb. That was the ones for me where I think we kind of lacked, but obviously then going through and putting on the performance that we did against Dortmund. Not Dortmund, sorry, Bayern Munich. The performance we put on against Munich was fantastic, and I thought that showed the true progression of Celtic this year in the Champions League, and it showed that we can adapt and we can play European style football. There's a few cracking results in there, so that for me, I'd give it a B probably.
Yeah. What about yourself, Quinny? Have you had any gradings for our season domestically and European? Well, we've seen it. Listen, the league will finish up an A, no doubt, because we'll get that league win. But you've been fairly impressed with what we've seen for Celtic, despite some of the sketchy results.
Yeah, I think like I would feel bad if I said anything other than an A for Europe because of how good it was at the beginning and ultimately how it finished with the Bayern game. Like I won't forget that Bruges and Dynamo kind of set up for a while, but it's what we got to draw away. We got to draw away at Atalanta. We beat some teams where we really made a good fist of it. Like the only teams that beat us were quarterfinalists and that kind of stuff. So I'd feel
Mhm.
bad if I didn't say A personally, but it probably isn't really an A because of those games. But I can't help myself. And domestically, like I think it's somewhere like that as well, where it's we would have preferred probably to like have beaten them and like probably had the league. Like it'd be so funny if we'd got
Tied
to
up,
20
yeah.
points or something mad like that. You know, imagine if we'd beat them all those
Mhm.
times and whatever.
Yeah, of course.
But that's just like how much can you ask for as a Celtic fan, and that's when you run into the realms of people saying that you're entitled and all that caper. But so yeah, I think it's hard to say like it's anything but an A. And again, there's some great context coming into the chat as well around the games, especially from McLaughlin there talking about the change of the team for the Derby match with injuries and whatnot. The bench as well, by the way, like Paddy was bringing up, like the bench against Rangers in that Derby and Aston Villa are the two like youngest benches we've had all season.
Yeah,
with like
light, very light nose, very light.
yeah, so adding that in, like I suppose it maybe adds in it. Again, it just further highlights the transfer policy or lack thereof in some cases because yeah, no, another player still is missing. But yeah, I would find it hard to not go A and A, but there is something that one of them should be a B, but I can't quite bring myself to do it.
Yeah. Well, what I'll do is I'll give you the final word, Joe. That's the only time you're going to get the final word, and
Clearly.
it's more to do with the players. It's more to do with the players than the overall performance. You can give me a wee grade for the performances if you wish, but I'm going to take Daisen Maeda out this equation here.
Good.
Who
Good.
is
That's
the
what I wanted you to
who
do.
is the outstanding performer for Celtic to date so far in this season? Where are you at with that one, mate?
I think one of them, and some will agree, some won't, that's the whole point of this, has got to be Alistair Johnston. I think he's been a great consistency for us. I think he's been very strong and he's got less cards this season. That's one of the most important things as well, because he was a bit of a danger for us for a good while. And I think we can again all agree on that when he came on, when he made his tackles, we were all a bit, oh well, I hope they don't play that back on VAR and things like that. But I think this season he's been a lot better. He's been that more controlled. His control of the ball and the way he's linked up with Kuhn has been fantastic down the wing as well. So for me, Alistair Johnson gets an A, Maeda gets an A plus. That's the way I kind of weigh it up.
I like that. All positive there, all positive. But yeah, listen, plenty to think about. We could go on for ages, but don't want to keep everybody here, particularly when we've got a guest on as well. It's maybe we overshot this. 4 people on screen was always going to get dragged right out a bit longer than we maybe thought there. But listen, thank you to every single person for joining us. We're just short of an hour and a half there. I know during this international break it can be a wee bit boring, but don't worry because proper football is back at the weekend. It's a game against Hearts, and of course, it's quite a good time this weekend because that'll also coincide with our 1-year anniversary. So thanks again to everybody that's supported us over the course of this year. It's been a great ride. I wouldn't change it for the world. And lastly, thank you to yourself, Quinny, for coming on and giving your wise words as always and thoughts on matters to do with the club. So where are you going to be, just for those that maybe don't follow? It's highly unlikely that you wouldn't follow or know who Quinny is, but where are we going to be seeing you? When you popping up next, mate?
Well, you'll find me generally talking Celtic at Celtsar here on YouTube and on social media at Quinny3001. You'll find me talking about a lot more other stuff you're maybe not interested in. All football based for the most part. But yeah, I would say Celtsar here tomorrow. I've got I did a video last week where it was like looking at the Scottish League. Tomorrow the video is about looking at the French League, and the only reason I chose that league for the next one was because we got linked to a wee guy from Nantes I'd never heard of before, which we kind of spoke about before, so I went and had a wee looking at him. And I know a fair. The fun thing about what I get up to is like I actually know this guy. Yeah, I actually know I can communicate with tons of people that watch all sorts of football, if you know what I mean. So getting guys kind of remotely eye tested, as I kind of call it, if I can't watch them, maybe somebody else can at least say if the guy's a bum or not. It's good fun, So I picked up with that, and then I went through France and did the same kind of thing. So if you're interested in the transfer chat, there'll be one out tomorrow.
Lovely stuff.
Excellent.
Well, make sure you check that out. So thanks again to every single one of you for watching, and of course all three of you guys on screen for taking the time out. Whatever it is that you should be doing with your life, I know that I've got kids and I've got a missus through by there. I better get myself back to that, and I've got some dogs to walk. Born life, eh? But anyway, thank you all. We'll be back at the weekend. Well, I won't, because I'm away to Tenerife to sun myself my 40th. But I'm sure you'll see these two bald reprobates here to talk about, hopefully, another step closer to a league win and a nice wee morale boosting win against Hearts, because they're not quite Rangers, but they feel a wee bit like it. So I'll take a win over them. So till the next time, take care of yourselves. We'll see you around the bend. And as always, hail, hail. See you later.
Hail, hail, guys.